Imagine if after the success of the Ford Mustang, Ford had released the Pinto, slapped the Mustang logo on it, and sold it to the public as the latest, greatest Mustang. Now imagine Ford actually succeeded in this crazy scheme, enough so that they tried it not one more time, but three more times before they realized they weren't fooling anyone anymore and gave up. Well, that's basically how we got Kickboxer 2 The Road Back, and the other two movies in the Kickboxer franchise. Now, given the title of the sequel, you'd be justified in thinking Jean Claude Van Damme came back for the sequel. After all, his character Kurt Sloan beat Tong Po, the man who paralyzed his brother Eric in a vicious Muay Thai bout in Thailand. At the end of Kickboxer, Kurt was victorious. So he's got to be in the sequel, right?
Right? Wrong.
Kickboxer 2 stars Sasha Mitchell as David Sloan, the brother of Kurt and Eric, that was never mentioned in the first film. Oh well, continuity was never all that important in martial arts movies, so we'll just have to let that one go. After all, Van Damme passed on the sequel to make Double Impact, which I guess was the smart career move, because Van Damme actually showed some acting chops in that movie, playing polar opposite twins, and he managed to pick up credits as a writer and producer. But I digress. So, Van Damme isn't in this one. Sasha Mitchell is our hero now. Yay, Sasha. Wait a minute. Who is Sasha Mitchell? Well, Mitchell had roles in several TV shows in the 80s and 90s, including Dallas and Step by Step. His film career seems to have peaked with the Kickboxer movies, and I guess it's worth mentioning that he played the lead baddie in Class of 1999 2, The Substitute, which I'm told is awful, but I still plan to see it. But enough about Sasha. What's David's story and why should we care? Well, I'm glad you asked. David has inherited the kickboxing gym that his brothers built. But David hasn't done a very good job of managing the family business, and it's in jeopardy of closing down. So Peter Boyle, playing slimy fight promoter Justin Micaiah, waltzes in one day with the bad guy from I Come in Peace to offer David a fight in a main event bout he's promoting. David says thanks but no thanks because, you see, after losing his two brothers to the professional kickboxing world, David has decided to hang up his gloves and teach instead. Aww. Oh, which reminds me, we don't actually find out what happened to Kurt, Van Damme's character, until like 40 minutes into the movie. 40 whole minutes. That's almost the midpoint of the film. So what happened to him? Turns out he was gunned down by Tong Po in an alleyway because he's a poopy pants sore loser. By the way, when we see Kurt lying dead on the ground in the alley, he's shirtless. And it's raining. Make of that what you will. But back to David. He won't fight, but his young protege Brian is more than ready for his chance to go up against the big boys. So Boyle's Micaiah takes Brian under his wing and gives him a shot at the title. By the way, Brian is played by Vincent Murdaco, I hope I'm saying that right, who was in another cheap martial arts flick from 1991, the Don the Dragon Wilson vehicle, Ring of Fire. And that's not the only thing these two movies have in common. Ring of Fire and Kickboxer 2 both end with two fighters duking it out with hand wraps covered in broken glass. Muay Thai style. I couldn't find any formal connections between the two movies, so I guess it's just a strange coincidence. Anyway, Brian is cocky and thinks he's invincible, but when Micaiah's mysterious business partner, played by Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, an actor that seemed to pop up in every martial arts movie of the 80s and 90s, pulls a last-minute switcheroo, swapping Tong Po in for the fighter Brian thought he would be fighting, things go predictably sideways. I'll spare you the detailed plot breakdown. If you've seen enough of these movies, you know where it's going from here anyway. But suffice it to say, it all culminates in a showdown between David and Tong Po. Anyway, the salient point to make about Kickboxer 2 is that it's just not very good. Mitchell's mopey-dopey act is somewhat endearing, but this is a martial arts movie. We're not watching this crap expecting Daniel Day-Lewis level acting. We just want to see some butt kicking, and we want to see some quality butt kicking. To be fair, Van Damme's on-screen martial arts prowess is an almost impossible standard to live up to. But when our hero's karate skills are upstaged by an unknown actor in one of the first scenes of the movie, it's not a great start for a karate movie sequel. I did look up Sasha Mitchell's credentials to see if he actually had any martial arts background, and it turns out he has a black belt in Taekwondo and competed in legit kickboxing bouts back in the day. He's got a decent-looking spinning heel kick that he throws several times throughout the movie, but his turning kicks, or roundhouse kicks, look sloppy and uncontrolled compared to Van Damme's. There are also a few times in the final fight where Mitchell attempts a jump spin kick that is meant to remind us of Van Damme's signature jump spinning crescent kick, but the camera cuts away as Mitchell jumps and switches to a low angle each time he attempts this to hide the fact that Mitchell just doesn't have the skills to pull this kick off. But it's unfair to hang the failure of the movie solely around Mitchell's neck, because the fights in general in this movie are not good. We get a lot of tight close-ups of faces being punched and kicked in slow-mo, and these just come off looking so fake and unconvincing. I don't know if the lackluster punching and kicking is the fault of the choreographer or if it's down to director Albert Pyun's decision to film nearly every fight scene in the movie in slow motion. Either way, none of it's particularly exciting. And without great fight scenes, all that's left is a pretty boring remake starring a discount Van Damme. Interestingly enough, Kickboxer 2 was written by David S. Goyer, who would later find success writing superhero movies like the Blade trilogy and Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. And though there's little evidence of Goyer's skill as a screenwriter in Kickboxer 2, the movie isn't without its merits. The cast for the sequel is a step up from the original Kickboxer, which is notable for casting real-life pro kickboxer Dennis Alexio in a speaking role, which had to be dubbed over because Alexio's voice and delivery were so awful. Kickboxer 2's Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, Peter Boyle, and Miami Vice alum John Deal, David's friend and business partner, are certainly upgrades from the cast of unknowns that were cast in Kickboxer, and their presence lends the movie an air of credibility the original definitely lacks. Another highlight of the movie is Dennis Chow's return as Shan, the Muay Thai master that trained Van Damme in the original film. Chow has a quality about him that's very fitting for this role. He comes across as both wise and mischievous, and the movie just works better when he's on screen. Funnily enough, Chow portrays a wise old man archetype here, complete with fake salt and pepper hair. And at the time, Chow was all of 41 years old. I'm older than Chan was then, and I feel neither old nor wise. But I guess that's beside the point. There are two tangents worth going off on before I wrap this video up. The first is the similarity I noticed between Brian's bout with Tong Po and the real-life fight between Rick Rufus and Chang Puyek Katzengrit. I think I got that right. Anyway, this fight took place in the fall of 1988. Rufus was a Taekwondo black belt at the time, and he had a record of 28-0 in American kickboxing. His challenger was a Muay Thai fighter and unknown outside of Thailand. Rufus went into the fight cocky, boasting that he couldn't be beaten by the Muay Thai fighter. Katzengrit was facing an uphill battle. Rufus had a 3-inch height advantage and outweighed him by 40 pounds. The rule set also took away two of Katzengrit's most effective tools, knee and elbow strikes. But at the last minute, leg kicks were allowed, a technique that was not permitted in any of the American kickboxing associations at the time, but it's a signature of Muay Thai. Because American fighters had no experience with leg kicks, Rufus had no reason to fear them. Needless to say, by the end of the fight, Rufus couldn't stand on his own and had to be carried out on a stretcher. Fortunately, Rufus lived to fight another day, unlike Brian in Kickboxer 2, but the fight came to be known as the fight that changed history, which it did. Muay Thai has come to be possibly the most respected striking martial art on the planet, and it's quite possible the Rufus-Katzengrit fight inspired the Kickboxer series. Now, the second tangent involves the referee for the fight between Brian and Tong Po. The actor was a man named Jean LaBelle. Judo Jean LaBelle, as he was also known, passed away in 2022 at the age of 89. Judo Jean lived a full life, but it's always sad to see one of these guys go. LaBelle was and still is very respected in the martial arts community and has been associated with several high-profile martial artists from Bruce Lee to Ronda Rousey. Sadly, one of the things Judo Jean is best known for now is an altercation that supposedly took place between him and Steven Seagal on the set of one of Seagal's movies, in which LaBelle allegedly choked Seagal unconscious. Various versions of this story have Seagal pooping and or peeing himself and going into convulsions. But is the story true, or is it one of Hollywood's many tall tales? Keep an eye out on this channel for a deeper dive into this subject. Anyway, that's about all I gotta say about Kickboxer 2. Despite some better acting, this sequel fails on nearly every level to make an argument for itself. The story is a pointless rehash of the original. The setting is a downgrade from exotic Thailand. The bad guy, Tong Po, is a recycled loser from the first movie. The music is bland and unremarkable, so unremarkable that I didn't even want to talk about it in this video. But Kickboxer 2's greatest sin is boring, poorly shot, uninspired fight scenes. The whole reason I watch movies like this. I plan to watch the other sequels, but man, I'm in no hurry.